Welcome to the Cruise Retreat podcast. My name is Rita M. Perez, and I'm a triple certified travel advisor. But more importantly, I coordinate all the logistics to bring your online community offline through world travel. If you've been yearning to put together a group trip, but overwhelmed with all the details that come with planning, I and this podcast are here to help. Ready to transform lives on the open waters of the world? Let's get started. Hello everyone, happy Friday. Things have been so kooky this week and in a very positive way, but it is a little bit overwhelming trying to juggle all the things and manage life. Today's topic is something that is it's very universal. So it's not retreat specific, even though it does overlap in the retreat world, especially. So let's just get into it. It is the reality of travel right now, and everyone wants to travel now, which is amazing. But travel is not the same that it was in 2019 and early 2020 when we were heavily traveling prior to everything starting. And a lot of things have affected that. There is just so much that has affected that. So I have like a little checklist of like notes that I've written down here first. And one of the major things that has affected what's going on in the travel space right now, and if you've been planning a trip or if you've been working with a travel advisor to plan a trip, you have probably noticed that it might be taking a little bit longer to get answers. And that is because we're taking longer to get answers from our suppliers as well. And this is due to a lot of things. This is due heavily to the hospitality industry currently being short-staffed. And what I attribute the short-staffedness to is because the hospitality industry was probably the hardest hit in terms of staffing when everything did start. And I can say that as well because I was working in the hospitality industry. I only resigned last May because of my frustrations with how the hospitality industry was dealing with everything to go full-time in this business and my support business. And so they were the first ones to cut a lot of people. So all your furloughs and people being laid off, the hospitality industry was greatly affected. And there's been a little bit of shady business that has happened in the hospitality industry too, in the sense that as jobs were opening back up, the hospitality companies were supposed to be hiring the people that were furloughed or laid off first. And that didn't necessarily happen. And I mention that also because a lot of people got burned by the hospitality industry these past 2 years. And a lot of people that even love their jobs, they're not returning back to the hospitality industry. Like I remember one of my friends who worked in hotels is now working in fencing. He sells fences, and that's because of the volatility with our industry, no matter how amazing it is, because we have everything that people go to get away is involved in the hospitality industry and therefore also in the travel industry. So when there's 4-hour wait hold times, that's also why you hire the professionals. So we wait on hold and you don't have to worry. You just wait for the answers when they come in. But when people are like, I don't know why I just had to wait on hold for 4 hours, because I did that last week, I think of all those factors. Are they short-staffed? Did somebody have to go on break? And so it just caused like an even bigger hole in their wait time. Hospitality industries haven't really been a people first organizations either. So those are all sorts of factors that are having to deal with a lot of the labor shortages that we're feeling in the industry. And so it's not only affecting hold times, but it is also affecting the quality of the calls, meaning that there's a lot of new people to the industry and they don't know how the industry works, and they don't know, because they're probably new to this company as well, they don't know the different procedures and protocols that it is working with said company. And so there's so many different factors and layers. And this is why everyone, if you are just going on a personal retreat, or personal vacation, or if you're going on a retreat, regardless of if you're working with a travel advisor or not, these are going to be hiccups all over the board when we're figuring out travel for 2022 and beyond, because who knows? Mix that in, staffing shortages. We are still dealing with safety protocols as it comes to the pandemonium. I don't want to get flagged. And things are changing. Granted, things are changing on the positive here. Some things are changing very rapidly, where there's like whole countries, I think Ireland and Iceland are the first two that come to mind, that have lifted everything. Dominican Republic, I think, is another one. They've lifted all of their restrictions. And then there's other ones that are a little bit slow. And then even for the United States, a lot of people are hesitant to travel. And I speak like on the industry on this, a lot of people are hesitant to travel because they're afraid to get stuck overseas with that testing requirement to get back to the United States. So I know a lot of you are opting to take cruises from the United States or just to stay in the continental US. Because it is a little bit scary, and having been around a lot of people who did have to stay back because they did test positive back in December, it is tough. It is doable, but it is tough. And that's why I say for international travel, it's probably better if you are a little bit more independent. So my small business owners who live that laptop lifestyle, it is going to be a little bit easier for you to get away because you're probably traveling with your laptop. And so who cares if you're staying in France for another 2 weeks because you have to be quarantined? I say that very lightly because I know that it can affect a lot of things, but hey, that's why we got into this laptop lifestyle, so that we can work from everywhere. But that is a reality. And I know many of you are still fearful of travel because what if you get sick? What happens in these different destinations, and everywhere is so different. So you have to take that into consideration too, that the different suppliers that we work with, that is also at the top of their mind, and they have to make sure that they introduce protocols or keep protocols that kind of maintains the safety of everyone, and then also takes care of whoever is affected if something should happen. There is no shock here when I say prices have gone up. So this is another big thing that me as a travel advisor that we are having to combat, in a sense. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but a lot of people are expecting pricing that was in 2019 that is no longer the case in 2022. So you as a consumer, if I am working with you, it is very important to understand that there is a huge supply and demand issue. A little bit for what I was talking about before with labor shortages. But there is I feel like it could get worse in the sense of what we are now facing, which is the war over in Eastern Europe. Many of us are already experiencing it, increasing gas prices, which increasing gas prices doesn't affect us as drivers. It also does affect your flights and the prices of flights. This affects the prices of the cruises that you take because fuel surcharges are going up. So everything has a domino effect in this industry. So there are just so many things. I say this so that at least you are informed of what's going on. And I'm not saying that travel is not possible, because it's definitely not. I'm actually traveling next month and the month after, and I can't wait. But I say this because I don't want you to think that things are picture perfect and that dream trip that you have been wanting to take for the past 2 to 3 years is going to go on without a hitch this year or next year, because it's not realistic to say that and to promise that, because you just never know what is going to change in the world and how things are going to proceed. Going forward recently. What other things do I have on here? Now, while we do make every effort to make things picture perfect on the advisor side for you, our clients, it sometimes doesn't happen that way. And thank goodness, knock on wood, I have been like so blessed. I actually have clients right now who are in Maui, and I checked on them. They had a whale watching excursion. They said they saw tons of whales. So that just made my heart sing as a travel advisor. But not saying that that won't happen for you, but if there's little things here or there, flexibility is something that has to be huge top of mind. I say that too because I have been working with one of my corporate clients for their corporate retreat, and I have been waiting for probably almost a month now for answers on meeting space. And even before that, for the previous date that we were looking at, it took a couple of months to get that information. Like, everywhere is hurting right now. In addition, things are, in terms of compensation, are changing in the world. So full transparency, a lot of how travel advisors are operating is very different. And that's because there was a lot of time and wages that were lost in the past. And I feel like we kind of realize our amazing value that we provide for the people that we serve, which is you guys. And so now we have different structures. So just like you would pay the plumber a fee to come in here, even if he doesn't really do too much, that's the fee that they get. You would pay a contractor come and do it and pay a fee to put up like new windows or to do painting or whatever. So a lot of travel advisors are moving to that model to get compensated for the time that they do spend crafting these amazing trips that we do. If you've been following me on stories, you've been hearing about this Hawaii trip and then another California trip that I've been crafting for a client. And then I also have Vegas and New York that I am working on. And that takes time. And we cannot, especially with the clients who are willing to compensate us for our time, it's just not feasible to work for free anymore, to put it very bluntly. So travel advisors are having to introduce different fee structures in order to be paid accordingly for our time. I think I have gone through a lot of what has kind of changed in the past 2 years. I will say, like, one of the biggest benefits right now is that there's still not, even though many people are booking travel right now, it is still very light. The world is lightly traveled, I say, meaning that you can go onto ships and they're still not at capacity. So it really is kind of like the best time to travel if you are ready and willing to travel right now. So kind of like last minute type of travel. It is possible and you're going to get awesome rewards from it. So I say, like, that is one of the best things that I love about travel, is that I know that things aren't going to be sold out. So I have a lot of wiggle room around the ships and all that. Yesterday's price is not today's price. That was the other thing. I've had like that meme or GIF or TikTok or whatever in my head. And like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, what you may have expected to pay back in 2019 is not the case moving forward in 2022 and 2023. So you have to be cognizant about that. And you have to be cognizant that the longer that you wait to book something, the more the price is going to increase. Like recently, I just went ahead and I booked my plane tickets for my trip next month. I had been thinking about waiting, like maybe if the price will drop. And it's like, no, I don't know about you guys with gas, but here in Orlando, it was $3.79 or $3.99. And then it was $4.19. And then like in a matter of days, it jumped up to $4.39. And like I was mentioning, gas prices, that's the same kind of prices that they pay to fuel up the planes and the ships. And so I was like, I can't wait. Now, this is another thing you might not know. When you purchase a cruise, you are subject to a fuel surcharge fee if there are increases in fuel costs. So let's say that your cruise cost you $3,000. If the price of gasoline, oil, it surpasses what was budgeted for that cruise, you may find extra fees. Now, I haven't seen that happening just yet, but I can also see suppliers like increasing their overall rates to kind of help cover this as well. So just a heads up, if you are wanting to do any sort of travel, I would at least book something refundable rate in case you do change your mind. And that's something that you can discuss with me as your travel advisor or whoever you do utilize. Because that is going to be so important, especially if you probably have thought, yes, I want to go to Ireland next year. Let's go ahead and book something. And then maybe some circumstances change that you're no longer able to do that trip, or you would rather go to Alaska instead of Ireland. So, I would not wait on booking anything if I were you. And I do say that as me not having like my next couple of years. I say that also as me being guilty of doing that and waiting out and hold on. So I say that to you, but I also need to follow my own advice. But it is also, side note, personal note, it is hard as a single person trying to take trips and trying to like corral the troops with you to go on a trip with you. So if you're needing any help with that, just let me know. But I think those are the major highlights, the major points. There are the dent that the hospitality industry left for people working in the hospitality industry is a huge factor as to why there are long hold times and inexperienced people answering calls, because the staffing levels and the types of staff aren't there because they got burned by the industry 2 years ago. And then prices are increasing due to everything. And it's not just the war that's going on. It's because factories and things had to shut down. And like I said, it's a trickle effect. So factories and everything were shutting down to slow the spread 2 years ago. And now everybody's kind of catching up, but it's the domino. It affects everything. Your picture perfect expectations. While for most of my clients, everything has gone well, you just never know what can happen. Like I had one of my clients do a test falsely positive. Thank goodness their next test was negative. They had 2 negatives and then this one false positive. So it ended up okay for them. But can you imagine, like, you get to your destination and you test and slowly but surely those testing requirements are being lifted, but you just have to be prepared. And that's the mentality that you have going into travel in 2022 and beyond. Anything can happen. Anything is possible. So I'm just going to be here for the ride. I am just happy to be traveling. So whatever happens, happens. That's the mentality that you need to have going forward. And that travel advisors are operating a little bit differently to make sure we are compensated for all the knowledge and making sure that we're taking care of you to the highest standard, instead of making sure that we have the suppliers at the forefront. All right, even though we do have amazing supplier relationships, but really my loyalty is to you, my client, and not to my supplier. There's like a separate loyalty that maybe I should have a different conversation. We should talk about that. Supplier relationships, that might be a different live. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for joining me live. I will go ahead and put this on my recordings and also stick this in stories. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on the Cruise Retreat podcast. Please subscribe and leave the show a rating so more team and community leaders like yourself can get access to these episodes. See you next week.